Okay, we're going to finish up section 5.1. And remember less than or greater than. Well, we're going to look at two decimals and put in the less than or greater than symbol. This is your less than, and this is your greater than. Okay, so we're going to be comparing two decimals. Okay, so let's look at is 0.9 less than or greater than 0.6? So is it less than or greater than? So we can think of it in terms of money, or what I like to do is line them up. I like to line the decimals up. And we can see that 0.9 is bigger than 0.6, or 9 is bigger than 6. So I'm going to put a greater than in there. That's what I like to do. Let's try another one. Is 0.6 less than or greater than 0.59? Well, line them up. You put a 0 in there if you want. Put a 0 in there if you want. So I added zeros here and here. And if I'm looking right here, I can see that 6 is bigger than 5, or 0.6 is bigger than 0.59. So I'm going to put a greater than in there. What happens if I have a negative? Make my 5 a better than. Is negative 0.5 less than or greater than negative 0.3? So remember, when we're talking about negatives, the closer your number is to 0, the bigger So if I'm lining these up, not negative right now. This is bigger, but they're negatives. If they're negatives, who's closer to 0? So that's bigger. So negative 0.5 is less than negative negative 0.3. So think about who's closer to 0 when you're doing the negative ones. Let's try another negative. Let's see. So is negative 7.31 less than or greater than negative 7.32? So we have to think about who is closer to 0. Or if you want to take the negatives away, who is smaller? Either way you want to look at it. So if we line them up, they match up everywhere except here. And I'm not doing negative yet. So 7.32 would be bigger. And 73.1 would be smaller. If I put the negatives in, 7.31 is closer to 0. The smaller one is closer to 0. So that means it's greater than. Closer to 0, bigger. Okay, then they have, last thing is rounding. Okay, so I want to round each decimal to the nearest tenth place. So first one I'm looking at, 0.67. I want to round to the nearest tenth place. So we did rounding very beginning of the semester. Remember, we look next door to the right. Remember, 4 or below stays the same. 5 or higher, we bump up 1. So I'm looking at the 7 is where I want to look. And the 7 is 5 or higher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump up the 6, 1, make that a 7, and everything falls off after that. So my answer is 0.7. And that is rounded to the 10th place. When you're done, you should have the 10th place, nothing else after it. Let's try another one. Let's round this one to the nearest hundredth. Who's sitting in the hundredth spot? Again, if you need to know that, you can go to page 409. If you're not familiar with the place values yet. The 4 is sitting in the hundredth spot. So I'm going to look to my right. And remember, 5 or bigger, we bump up that spot by 1. Remember, let's go back. 5 or higher, we bump up 1. So this is 5 or higher. So we're going to look here. We're going to bump up 4 by 1. So I'm going to have 0.85 as my final answer. So I'm just, if I want to round to my nearest hundredth, I'm looking at the number in the hundredth spot. Underline that, look next door to your right, 5 or higher. Bump up the underlined spot by 1. If not, let's do another one where it would stay the same. So again, I want to round to the nearest hundredth. Hundredth, the 3 is sitting in the hundredth spot. I'm looking next door to the right. 4 or lower, so I'm going to stay the same. 3 stays the same. So my answer is 0.23. Okay, that's the end of 5.1. I will be back with 5.2. Remember, if you ever have any questions, please go ahead and email me. Okay, I'll see you in 5.2.